Y'all are nearing the end of your memoir process. You have a few things left to do. You guys have done the hard work. You've done the writing, you've done some revising, adding in your emotions, choosing an amp up, and now you get to have a little bit of fun with this. We're not quite done yet though. So the focus today and next Tuesday and I think next Wednesday is going to be on choosing your final format for your memoir and on actually doing some revising. I know a lot of times when your teacher tells you to like edit or revise a paper, you look back through it and you're like, it looks good to me, that's fine. And you just turn in the most recent draft. Well, that's not exactly how this works because I'm going to ask you guys, just like yesterday when you picked an amp up, I'm going to ask you guys to pick what revisions you want to focus on as well. Our paper, because we've taken it all the way from a flash draft, is probably still pretty rough. So you guys are going to need to go in and actually start looking for where you want to put your paragraphs. You need to make sure that your punctuation is correct, that you are adding in your periods. Sure. So that's part of the revising process. But that's the boring part. You'll get that part over with pretty quickly. So let's see what you're actually doing for revising. Before we do revising real fast, I want you guys to keep in mind that your final memoir does not have to be like typed or written out like a story. You're welcome to keep it like that if that's the original version you're doing and it can be a written story. But you can also take your flash draft or your rough draft, yeah, and turn that into a different product as well. So you could do a spread, which is 2 pages of a hand-drawn comic, like in Hey Kiddo. So like a graphic novel format, but just 2 pages. You could do a series of poems, like we read in The Bronx Masquerade. You could do a story with pictures, like a scrolling web comic, like The God of Cake. So basically you'd start with that typed written story and you would just add in pictures that you find on the internet or from your phone. You can also do the story with pictures on paper as well. So if you are very artistic and you want to write out your story on paper and then add your own pictures that you hand draw, you're welcome to do that too. You can also take a risk and try out free verse poetry. That was like when we read Long Way Down. So this would be a series of poems that they don't rhyme, but they're really careful about what words they choose. And you really want to pay attention to like the structure and the shape of what you're saying. So you might have a rough draft right now that's 1 page and it ends up becoming 4 or 5 of these, like a 4 or 5 series of free verse poetry. It's totally your choice which one you want to pick. So you've got 5 different choices: written story, hand-drawn comic, poetry, story with pictures, or free verse. You're going to want to know that because you are officially starting your last rough draft here. Okay, so once you've made that decision, it doesn't affect anything just yet. I want you guys to really, really be sure you watch that first video, watch this first video. Oh, you're watching me right now. I need to go home. All right. So anyway, you're watching me right now, so you're doing good. Yay. So, okay, revisions. Here's the really big part. This part's so big that I'm giving you guys 2 days to really work on this and get into it. So instead of just looking at your paper and being like, I don't really know what to change, you're going to choose your own adventure. You're going to pick what you want to change. These are some of the options that you guys have. These are things that actual authors do when they finish a book and they want to go back in and change things, or they finish a really important letter or a speech and they want to go back in and improve it. So there's a few things that you already know that are obvious, like check your grammar, like your punctuation and periods. But you also want to go back in and pick one of these. Maybe you want to elaborate. You want to go back in and add more details. Maybe you realize I'm just telling what's happening a lot. I'm not really showing the scene, like physically what's happening. So that might be something you choose to work on. You could choose to work on your story techniques. You could choose to work on the flow. In fact, I highly encourage all of you guys at some point to make sure you're checking your flow because you really should have separate paragraphs if you're writing out the story. But you're also going to need to make sure you're connecting your ideas paragraph to paragraph so that it kind of flows. Another thing on flow that's interesting is actually cutting stuff out, taking things out of your rough draft. So if you're reading through the story and all of a sudden you randomly break off onto a tangent about your brother, and you're like, oh, wait, no, we're not talking about that here. That's going to need to be cut. And that absolutely goes with the flow as well. So risky new writing decisions, you can break some of the rules, like do 1-word paragraphs or 1-sentence paragraphs, not just because, but because you feel like it enhances your story or helps make a point. You can add in pictures, graphics, whatever you would like to do. So try taking a risk. If you think something's too risky and you're really nervous, you can ask your English teacher, but chances are we won't be disappointed and you won't be disappointed. It's fun. You can go back in and try to add a hook to your beginning. So make your conclusion really exciting. Also, make sure that you guys have a reflection or conclusion. Remember, this is memoir. So with memoir, at the very, very end of your memoir, whether it's a graphic novel or it's written like a story, you need to have that piece where you are reflecting back on what this memory means to you, or maybe a lesson that you learned from it. It doesn't have to be serious, but it does need to be there. So to turn this in, basically, you're just going to go back in your most recent draft, and I want you guys to start choosing these revisions and doing your edits. You'll go ahead and turn this into me today, but I'm going to have you guys continuing to work on this next week because we really want to polish these things. We're going to take this paper all the way from really, really rough, like flash draft, all the way to a polished draft. So, all right, that's it. You guys get to pick whatever format you want, and then you get to choose what revisions you want. Again, I recommend that everybody checks out like flow and grammar and the reflection, but if you really want to focus on a certain one, you do you, boo. All right, guys, have fun, and I will see you later. Bye.